everyone. Welcome back to The Victim's Voice. I'm your host, Lorelai. This week, we're going to talk about how disgusting Maxwell Anderson is and talk about what happened at his sentencing on August 1st of 2025. We will also be talking about Sunshine Stewart, a woman who went paddleboarding, something she did often, but this time met someone with nefarious intentions and never returned from her excursion. So, let's get into it. Our first story is a case that I will actually be covering in next week's episode of The Victim's Voice. But his sentencing was last Friday, August 1st, so I want to go over what happened during that hearing. I'll give a brief overview of the case now, but you'll be able to hear a deep dive of it next week. This case involved the murder and dismemberment of 19-year-old Shanda Robinson from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She had met 33-year-old Maxwell Anderson recently and decided to go on a date with him, a date that would prove to be deadly. The day after Max and Sade's date, Sade was reported missing after she didn't show up to work. Right around this time, body parts started showing up in areas around Milwaukee, along with Sade's car being found engulfed in flames behind an abandoned building. It only took 2 days and 3 law enforcement agencies working together, combing through physical and digital evidence along with interviewing witnesses, to find out that Maxwell Anderson had not only been the last person to see Sade alive, but that he was also seen in the area where the car was found ablaze. On April 4th of 2024, Maxwell was arrested, and after more investigation, further connected Maxwell to Sade's murder. On April 12th of 2024, he was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson. The case went to trial at the end of May this year, 2025, and lasted for 1 week. After the prosecution presented their case, and the defense attorney tried to say that Maxwell didn't kill and dismember Sade, and that it was just a in the wrong place at the wrong time sort of thing, the jury took 45 minutes before coming back and finding Maxwell guilty on all charges. During the whole trial, Maxwell sat silently, with a confused look on his face as if he didn't know why he was even there. And during the sentencing, the look didn't change. Maxwell's sentencing was actually supposed to be on August 15th. However, it was moved up to August 1st. I don't know for sure why this happened, but I have a feeling the jail was getting tired of putting up with Maxwell's behavior. According to the prosecution, it seemed that Maxwell was having trouble with controlling his bladder and shitting his pants. Yes, you heard that right. Maxwell intentionally shit his pants. What a catch, huh? No wonder he had trouble getting a girlfriend. The prosecutor told the court that not only had Maxwell urinated in the back of a police vehicle during transport, but he shit his pants on the way back to jail after the first day of trial. He also had received 21 disciplinary reports while in jail awaiting sentencing. So I think they were ready to get his nasty ass out of there. As the sentencing hearing began, we first heard victim impact statements. The first was from Sade's 17-year-old sister, Adriana Reams. She said, quote, "He took the guide and support system and role model that she was going to be for the rest of my life. He stole my big sister, who always protected me and nurtured me and put me first. And he robbed her of her ability to do that and feel accomplished because she knew she was setting me up for a life better than the one she was forced to struggle through. He makes me feel extra angry because he still shows no regret and sits here looking stupid without any guilt for what he did. He stole my sanity because I will spend the rest of my life searching for answers that I'll never get about what he did to my sister and why he did it. Because even though he has no life ahead of him, he still refuses to tell us these answers, even though doing so no longer has any ability to hurt him." Sade's mom, Sheena Scarborough, was next, and she was angry, and rightfully so. They had to take the mic from her and whispered to her several times during her statement because of the language she was using, which were all remarks aimed at Maxwell. And I say he deserved to hear any and everything that this mama had to say because they were all true. One of the best parts of her statement is when she looked at Maxwell and said, "My daughter called you a man, but you're not a man. You're a pussy ass bitch." She said that she, along with her daughters, were light workers, and that Maxwell was the opposite, that he was darkness, and that he and his family were controlled by demonic forces. Sheena is even more heartbroken because they still don't know where all of Sade's body is. And even though Maxwell can't be in any more trouble than he already is, still won't tell them anything. And in fact, still denies having anything to do with what happened to Sade. Here is more of what Sheena had to say. "I'm going to respectfully request that you confess where the rest of my daughter's crown is. If you have any respect left for me or her father or her sister and the rest of my family in this community, you've already done the worst you can. At least give us that much." Last but not least was Sade's father, Carlos Robinson. Here is what he had to say. "Somebody who does something like this doesn't even deserve to live. I think death is a way out. You deserve what you get. He deserves the punishment that he gave to my daughter. Everything that he did should be done to him. That's how I feel." That to me, that's justice. I don't feel like he has a right to walk around and breathe air, eat breakfast, brush his teeth. He doesn't have that right. The moment he did what he did, he lost that any human, basic human right. No man should be able to live doing what he did. Next up was Maxwell's father, Stephen Anderson. He gave a brief apology to Sade's family, saying, "On behalf of myself and my family, I'd like to say a few things. First, to Sade's family. There are no words that I can share that will reduce your pain. You are all in my thoughts every single day." He went on and said that 10 years ago he lost a boy who was like a son to him, so he knows how they are feeling. He said it took him a long time to get over the pain associated with the person who contributed to his passing. He said that he's not asking Sade's family to forgive anybody. That's between them and their God. Notice, he didn't say, "I'm not asking you to forgive Maxwell or forgive my son," but forgive anybody. He then thanks the court for their compassion and professionalism. Then he turns to his punk ass son. He tells him that he loves him and that he supports his plan for self improvement and hopes that it leads to a path for him to become a positive influence on society, both while he's incarcerated and hopefully after. I'm sorry, I know that's his son and he loves him, but really, a plan of self improvement to be a positive influence? First, he needs to admit what he did and take accountability for his actions, which he still hasn't done. As you will hear in the full episode, Maxwell's daddy has bailed him out over and over and turned a blind eye to his troubled son. And it seems like that's what he continues to do. Stephen did get Maxwell a fancy lawyer, but that didn't do him any good. So I guess he'll just have to put money on his poor little boy's commissary. Maxwell's attorney spoke and asked the judge to give his client 25 to life instead of life without parole. He said that Maxwell's past isn't violent and they were all just misdemeanors. Yes, they were all reduced to misdemeanors, but they were absolutely violent, as you will hear in the full episode of this case next week. His lawyer also mentions character statements written by Maxwell's family, saying what a great guy he is. The judge definitely addresses this before she hands down her sentence. Then Maxwell speaks. He had the nerve to say, "From the bottom of my heart, my deepest and most sincere condolences go out to Sade's family, as well as everyone else affected by this tragedy." He went on to say that he took the case to trial without ever once trying to make a plea deal of any kind because he's innocent. He said he hopes further investigations not only prove his innocence, but find and deliver true justice. Okay, listen, my dude, you did this. There is a mountain of evidence pointing at you, Maxwell Anderson. You were there when the car was set on fire. You, no one else. I'm not going to go over all the details of how they were able to link this to Maxwell in less than 2 days, but you will hear everything in next week's episode. The judge basically told Maxwell that he was a lying sack of shit. She read his initial statement to the court, and here is his account of what happened that night. He admitted that he and Sade went back to his house. He said that they talked for a little bit and had some drinks, and then she left. He then said that some mystery man must have been waiting in his backyard or in the alley behind his house and abducted Sade when she walked out the door, and then proceeded to do all these horrible things. He said he regrets not walking Sade to her car. And that was it. That was all he had to say. When he was asked why he was in the location of Sade's burning car on that next morning, he had the nerve to say that he was there buying weed and that he was set up. He said all a person would have to know is where he lived and where he was going to be the next morning. When they asked him information about where he went to buy the weed or how he had contacted the person or who knew where he was going to be that next morning, he wouldn't give an answer. I guess he hadn't thought his story through that much and didn't plan on them asking questions. So Maxwell was really trying to go with the wrong place, wrong time bullshit, sprinkled with a little bit of he was set up. Go away, Maxwell. No one buys your bullshit, except for you and maybe your daddy. The judge certainly didn't buy it. She said that she didn't believe that Maxwell was able to be rehabilitated and that there were a million red flags that had shown a level of violence dating all the way back to 2010. The judge also read a statement from a member of the community who didn't know Sade personally, but wanted the court to know how Maxwell's crimes had affected the community and that they hoped he would never see the light of day again. She then addresses the character statements from Maxwell's family. These same family members who say that Maxwell isn't violent and has never had mental health problems are the same family members that he committed violent acts against in the past, and the same family members who called the police and had Maxwell arrested. It seems that, like Maxwell, his family is living in some other version of reality. Even though at the moment that he's acting out, they call the police, it seems like later they regret their decision and say it's okay and let it go. Maxwell's family, especially his dad, have been bailing him out of trouble and excusing his behavior his whole life, and that is a major problem. The judge said that Maxwell does what he wants, when he wants, and doesn't care what the outcome is, that he follows his own rules, not the rules imposed on him. She says that Maxwell lives in his own made-up reality. She then tells him that he doesn't get credit for taking the case to trial and not entering a plea deal. He would get credit for taking responsibility, showing remorse, and resolving a case early. He would get credit for stepping up and saying what he did was wrong, but no credit for taking it to trial. She goes on to say the first step in rehabilitation is taking responsibility, to which he has never done. She also says she can find nothing redeemable about Maxwell Anderson. Maxwell Anderson was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. He will die in jail where he belongs. Now, on to our next story. At 1 a.m. on July 3rd of 2025, 48-year-old Sunshine, or Sunny Stewart, was found dead on Crawford Pond, which is located on the Micmac Campground in Union, Maine. Union is a rural town in Knox County that has a current population of around 2,400. It's a farming community known for blueberries and dairy. Micmac Cove Family Campground is family-oriented and is known for its rustic setting and activities such as hiking, boating, fishing, and swimming on Crawford Pond, which is a 600-acre body of water with an island in the middle known as a 100-acre island. Crawford Pond is surrounded by private property with no public access, meaning to be on it you have to have a spot at the campground or live on one of the private properties. The campground's accommodations include tents, cabins, and RV sites. On May 1st of 2025, Sunny had rented a campsite there for the summer, but had only been staying there for a couple of nights when she suddenly disappeared on the evening of July 2nd. Sunny Stewart was from Tennant's Harbor, Maine, a 36-minute drive from the Micmac Campground in Union. Sunny was known for her vibrant personality and her adventurous spirit. Sunny loved nature, and everything she did, she put her heart and soul into. And she had done a lot. She was a marine biologist, a boat captain, a lobsterman, and a carpenter. And if that wasn't enough, she owned her own construction business. Sunny had even rebuilt her own home, with one of her friends saying that she was like her own HGTV channel. Sunny loved doing anything that involved the outdoors, but most of all, she loved paddleboarding, which she often did on Crawford Pond. It was a place she was familiar with and a place she felt safe and comfortable at. So on July 2nd of 2025 at 6 p.m., according to trail cameras in the area, Sunny set out on her paddle boat on Crawford Pond. She was last seen near 100 Acre Island. As we said earlier, that's a little nature preserve in the middle of the pond that's only accessible by a watercraft. When Sunny didn't return, her roommate got concerned. It was already dark, so Sunny should have been back. The roommate started looking along the waterfront with a flashlight. Catherine Luntz, the owner of McMack, saw Sunny's friend looking around and joined her to help. When midnight approached and neither woman could find Sunny or her paddle boat, they got scared that she may have been hit by a boat or something, so they decided it was time to call the police. Multiple agencies got involved in the search for Sunny, and in the early morning hours of July 3rd, a couple of local residents that were assisting in the search came across Sunny's paddleboard. Shortly after this, at around 1 a.m., game wardens discovered Sunny's body under what they called unusual circumstances near the 100-acre island on Crawford Pond. Given the circumstances of the discovery, wardens called in the Maine State Police Major Crimes Unit, stating they did not believe Stewart had drowned or died by suicide. An autopsy performed by the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Maine on the day Stewart's body was found determined that she was a homicide victim. People who were there camping were freaking out, and rightfully so. Someone had murdered this woman who was doing nothing but enjoying some quiet time on the pond while paddleboarding. They wondered if the killer was going to strike again or if the attack on Sunny was isolated. The police didn't seem to know any more than they did at that point, and it was terrifying. In fact, there was a family camping on a 100-acre island, close to where Sunny was found. And authorities told them to continue their camping trip and that they were safe. But how could he know that? Some people theorized that the police thought someone from that group that was camping on 100-acre Island could have been the killer, and that's why they encouraged them to continue their camping trip. They wanted to keep everybody close by. For the next 2 weeks, authorities scoured the campground for evidence, and Kimberly Luntz decided she was going to help. She became obsessed with finding the person who turned her safe, family-friendly campground, her baby that she had built and was proud of, into a crime scene. She encouraged campers to give their DNA to the authorities and went through hours and hours of surveillance camera footage, trying to find something, anything that would lead them to Sunny's killer. Then, on July 16th, 2025, exactly 2 weeks after Sunny's murder, a suspect was arrested, and everyone was shocked by who it was. The police had arrested 17-year-old Devin Young, who was not only camping there at the time, but was a seasonal camper at the campground and known by many who worked or spent time there each year. After it was announced that he was arrested, Kimberly Luntz went back and looked at security footage again and realized that Young was on the water at the same time as Sunny. He had taken his family's boat out, but was back to land before darkness fell. She says that his arrest is shocking and that he wasn't on anyone's radar. She said that he seemed like a good kid and was polite, but awkward. Around camp, he would help others with yards and their pets, and he would make wooden crafts for other campers. It hasn't been said, though, if his family was the one camping at 100-acre Island. Sunny's sister Kim Ware set up a GoFundMe and raised more than $34,000 to help cover funeral costs, and said a celebration of Sunny's life has been scheduled for August 10th in Tennant's Harbor. At this time, no one knows of any connection that Sunny and Devin Young had. No one even knows if they knew each other, even though it's very likely that they had at least bumped into each other at one point or another, since they both spent a lot of time at McMount Campground. At this time, we don't know what led to Young's arrest, but we do know that he pleaded not guilty in his first court appearance, the day after his arrest. He is due in Rock Island District Court on August 22nd, weeks before his 18th birthday. Maine prosecutors confirmed on Monday that they have filed a motion to try him as an adult. When we have any more information on Sonny's case, I will be sure to update you. And now let's talk about Shanda Vander Ark. Now, I know you all remember her, the lovely wannabe lawyer from Michigan. I did several episodes involving her and her low-life son, Paul. I also released several phone calls between him and his girlfriend, baby girl. If you haven't heard them, please go have a listen. In July of 2022, Norton Shores PD in Michigan responded to a home on Marshall Road concerning the death of a 15-year-old boy. His death was classified as being under suspicious circumstances, and an investigation pursued. But after searching Shanda's disgusting house and examining her and Paul's cell phones, it didn't take investigators long to figure out that the mother and son duo tortured and starved to death 15-year-old Timothy Ferguson, who was on the autism spectrum. At the time of his death, he was 5'9" and weighed a mere 69 pounds. Shanda had locks on the fridge and pantry doors, and the only thing Timothy was allowed to eat was bread, and most of the time this bread was drenched in hot sauce called Extreme Regret. Shanda and Paul also were pouring the hot sauce directly down Timothy's throat. They also punished Timothy by making him do wall sets and giving him unbearable ice baths. They shackled his ankles and wrists at times if they thought he was being disobedient. The night before his death, Shanda made Timothy lie in a cold tub of water for multiple hours. Then what happened next was caught on one of the many cameras that Shanda had in the house that she used to watch Timothy while she was at work. Because he was too weak to walk, she drug him from the bathtub, completely naked, down to the basement to put him in his closet, where he slept. Before closing the door, she called him an idiot and said he was stupid. She did this because he was dying and his breathing had become labored. Within an hour, the camera caught Timothy taking his last breath. The next morning, when her and Paul found out that he had passed away, they staged the scene before calling 911. They pulled him out of the closet and dressed him in baggy clothes. Shanda tried to say that he had starved himself, and because of the baggy clothes, she didn't know that he was doing it. But like I said, it didn't take long for them to realize Shanda was not only a liar, but a monster. Shanda and then Paul were arrested. On July 8th, Shanda was charged with homicide and child abuse. Timothy had died of not only malnutrition, but also had signs of hypothermia, the result of the ice baths that he endured. Paul was charged with first-degree child abuse. Shanda pleaded not guilty and took the case to trial, while Paul pleaded guilty and testified against his mother, hoping to get a deal. On phone calls, he was telling people he hoped to get around 9 years. So he was very surprised when the judge sentenced him to 30 to 100 years in prison. During Shanda's trial, she testified in her own defense, claiming that she had mental health issues due to the stress of her husband's recent heart attack that forced him to move back in with his parents. When she was asked any questions about the abuse she exhibited towards Timothy, she would claim she didn't remember. After her first day of testimony, she no longer appeared at her trial. Her trial attorney, Fred Johnson, said that she was suffering from a medical condition and that she had given permission for the trial to continue without her. So it did. The jury deliberated for about 45 minutes before they came back and found her guilty. And in January of 2024, Shanda was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Everyone thought that was it, case over. But Shanda recently popped up again in the media. On July 25th of this year, Shanda appeared in court via Zoom, claiming that she was in a catatonic state after testifying at the first trial. So she feels that she was not competent and that the trial shouldn't have continued. She is also saying she had ineffective assistance of counsel because, according to her, she didn't give her attorney permission to continue without her. Although there's a paper she signed saying she did. But once again, Shanda says she doesn't remember signing anything. She also claims that there are witnesses who should have been called that he didn't call, and that during his closing argument, he mentioned that Shanda might be guilty of manslaughter, which she said that they had never discussed. The judge immediately denied her request for a new trial based on her not being competent, on the last day of the first trial. He brought up the fact that Shanda only seems to forget things and has mental health problems when things aren't going her way. He did decide that they would have a hearing regarding ineffective of counsel due to the accusations that she brought against Fred Johnson. Shanda will be required to attend this hearing in person. That court date has not been set yet, but as soon as it is, I will be sure to update you guys. And that's all for this week's Weekly Voice. For photos and articles regarding these stories, check out the Victim's Voice on social media. And if you would like to recommend a case to cover, you can fill out the form on the Victim's Voice webpage at the-victims-voice.org. And come back next week for a new case. Until then, peace out.